Good morning. 14. I have an idea that I like for today. We're going to start the same way that we started a couple days ago. I think that's nice. So we're going to start with passive flat design in elliptical and circular shapes. These are our mid-diameter ellipses. And as they get smaller, notice how they can get smaller and overlap, and that will create distance. So today, let's let our overlaps be more interesting. So that starts passing them back into the distance. And then if you're working in the foreground, let's let our line go darker, more assertive, thicker line. And then when we're working what we want to feel background, so these are different size ellipses, scooting off into the distance here. And here we'll do a foreground and take away what is overlapping. Okay, and then into this, we'll move into some really thin ellipses. Allowing them overlaps, and some of them can be a lot smaller. And some of them could be a lot bigger. These are a cool shape. I like the shape of ellipses. And then into circles. This is actually, right there, is actually a design problem. And you either want things to overlap or you want things to miss. So having okay, that's fun. We'll move into an active design of triangles. Just layering. And if it feels like I'm going too fast, just go slower. The flailing around looking for hoping to kind of make a mess and then clean it doesn't seem to really work. Kind of when you see really strong drawers at work, a lot of what you see is a carefulness that begins early and sticks around. If you do this, this is kind of cool. If you do that, that is called an airspace, and it tends to send this back further. It tends to send the overlapped shape deeper into the distance. Again, if we're trying to bring something forward, that becomes a darker line, and letting something go back is a lighter line. Real chance to work with pen pressure. Struggling to have, see, that's a problem. And what I want to do is I'm going to overlap this guy at this point. And that starts to sew it in. As you if you let your overlaps get confusing, that can be a cool effect. So as the class progresses, at first we were just trying to establish the ability to draw a line, and now we're really trying to make shapes and compositions. And as we progress, we'll try to make them better and better. We'll try to be better designers and just better artists. Which for us is just going to mean higher line quality. So we've got passive, active, and let's do a stable. And these are all medium, so let's do some small. All my triangles were all one size. We'll do some smalls. When I do the small, it has a, because I just kept the same pen size, it has a tendency to make the line quality like really strong, like too strong, because the small size wants them to go into the distance. So I have to work in a much more careful way to let them go into the distance. Now I want this to come forward. I'm trying to do a large. So now I've got small, medium, and large. I'm going to do a large one here. And notice, really notice the kind of aesthetic differences that you get from different shape characters. Okay, so all of these are our primary shapes, and they have a different feeling and a different character. Now let's practice some curves. And again, we'll just start with the 2 dots, and we'll start curving around. I like this. I like these curves. This particular shape of curve practice. I can see a three-dimensional shape starting to emerge from it, and I think it's cool. See how that shape becomes a wedge? Let me clean it up just a touch so you can see it. Those double curves. That could be a visor, or it could be a lemon, a wedge of a lemon. Kind of cool. It really creates a cylindrical feeling, a spherical feeling, this kind of curve. Okay, and then let's move into an S curve, which to do our S curve, we really need three dots. And you're starting to develop your calligraphy. Okay. Oh, those are painful. I need more practice with those. Okay. Warm-up page out of the way. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to move into a series of characters based on our three-dimensional shapes. But the first thing that I wanted to talk to you about with that is I wanted to talk to you about, if we look at this, this shape is a shape that we all kind of tend towards when we draw things, okay? This is just like our basic sensibility when we're trying to draw things. We're really fully captivated by the outline of things, but look at what happens. Okay, so do you see how this shape is now completed? Like the shape now has, like, so let's compare back and forth. Outline, developed form. Outline, developed form. So our practice has to be one of developing form. And the way that we develop form is by really coordinating like these points in space, but also really having what essentially are cross contour lines. They're lines that show the form in its middle, not just in its outline, but the lines that cross over the salient details of the form. Okay, so when we're drawing, anything, if we're drawing a sphere, we need to practice not only the sphere, but we need to practice the lines that cross the sphere that help us describe it in its dimensionality. Or if we're practicing when we draw a cylinder, it's these lines that make it so powerful. Like, for instance, if you look at it without that, if you just look at it like this, see how flat it becomes? But then you look at it like that and it takes on a sense of dimensionality. And so that's going to be our effort. And when we're working in really simple forms like spheres and cubes and cylinders, it's easy enough to understand and to go along with it because, you know, they may not be things you're overly used to drawing. But when you move into drawing a figure or a head, for instance, it's the same principle that applies. And we'll address that later on. But for right now, what I'm looking to have us do is I'm looking to have us start to design little characters using a couple of different things. We talked about, here's the geometric solids, and we also talked about sets of proportions, okay? And the sets of proportions that we're interested in are these. The sets of proportions that we're interested in are the 50-50, the 40-60, the 30-70, the 80-20, and the 90-10, okay? So these are the proportions that if we just practice having a rule, if we just practice a rule, it gives us an internal reference point to go to when we're starting to design. So let's take and what I'd like to do is take our geometric solids and let's start to shape them into little characters. So I'm going to start out inside of this proportion. So I'm working in the 30-70, okay? And here I'm going to give this guy, if I stop his legs right there, what I've ended up with is more of a 50-50, right? So, but I've said I was going to work in a 30-70. So I want to drop his legs down so that this part is 30% and that part is 70%. So he's going to give him little eyes and a mouth. And here's a little guy, okay? Now I want to do a cone guy. And I think I'll have my cone guy this is an upside down 40-60. Right, so I've got 60 up here and 40 down here. And we can make them compound too. We could go, let's do a compound character. We'll work with a sphere. And I'm going to start out with my sphere. I'm going to do, my sphere shape is going to be a 90, and I'm going to do a 10. So I'm going to do a 90, 10 for the proportion of the head, right? And then overall, I'm going to do a 50-50. Here's a cylinder guy. I want to do the 90-10 on a cylinder guy. And I can leave it in the distance. I can send it back into the distance. And the last one I need up here is a pyramid guy. And I think what I'll do with the pyramid guy is the 80-20. Okay, and then let's just keep on going. Remember the rule we talked about yesterday when we were working the thing that we were practicing yesterday when we were drawing the figure? We were practicing having something come forward and having something go back. And when we push something back, one of the things that we do is we don't show the dimensionality on it. So for instance, this guy has 3 sides, but this guy back here, I'm going to give him 2 sides. He's going to be a 50-50. And then if I go into the deep background, I go like this and let it be really flat. And the lines are lighter. So at this point, I'm going to get rid of that so that all I can see is what I've got here. And I'm going to start just trying to grow this little drawing. Okay, so just letting yourself noodle around with shapes. I feel like the proportions here are kind of a 30-70. There's a 50-50. See how these guys are becoming background? Okay, and that'll be it for today.